Good morning, all of you. And we are here to talk about CISSP. It is the very important topic in cybersecurity fraternity. So, we will be talking about CISSP domains in our upcoming series. So, let me introduce you guys to CISSP Success Toolkit. We have come up with masterclass, and today we will be covering few objectives about domain one, where I have invited our guest Manoj Sharma. He has been the military veteran for last 20 years. He has served our nation. Now he is here. We are on a mission. We have a vision where we can, make people aware about cybersecurity. We are here to spread cybersecurity. We'll be talking about more about specifically about CISSP. And welcome Manojji to the live session. And let's go ahead.
Yeah,
So,
thank you.
So here is a small introduction. Manojji, he's been, as I mentioned, he's have served Indian, Army for last 20 years, and now he is here to throw some light about CISSP. And he has been the professor of practice for MTech students in some of the renowned universities, and he's been even serving as a VCSO role in Dubai-based companies in over here. So there is a lot we can talk about him, but in the interest of time, let's focus on CISSP and specifically on the domain one. As we all know, CISSP contains 8 domains. There are 8 domains in CISSP. And today we'll be focusing on domain one, which is security and risk management, which covers about 16% of what questions you get in your real exam. So Manojji, would you like to throw some light about domain one? What has to be the mindset with which the student should pursue their path while they are preparing for their exam?
Sure, ma'am. And guys, as we have made a small, structure for this entire session today, we are going to first understand the mindset for domain number one. I think that's very, very fundamental because this domain contributes to 16% of your CISSP exam. So in that, we will try to understand the mindset and then how to prepare for the CISSP exam, and then objective wise main concepts. We will go through all the objectives for domain number one, and I will give you a good mindset about it based on some questions which are coming from Pratima ma'am, and then type of the questions you should be expecting in the CISSP exam for sure, because that's the main thing. I know all of you are here. And then how to prepare effectively, that is also something we are going to talk about in this particular session. Now, what is the mindset for the CISSP domain one? I think that was the first question, Pratima ma'am, you asked me. So
Yeah.
I think that's very fundamental, right? This domain number one, as I told you, contributes to 16% of your CISSP exam. And this is the entire base of the CISSP by itself. Because this is the domain which brings in the right level of leadership mindset within you, because the CISSP exam is just not testing you on the technical concepts. It is also talking about how do you apply the security concept as a leader in your day-to-day thing. And that is what we are going to cover in the domain number one. This particular domain is fantastic. There's a lot we can cover about this particular domain. We start with a mindset of, you can say, as a guy who is into security, you need to have proper ethics, all of it. We talk about some fundamental security concepts. Then we talk about, understanding the entire governance structure, because that's very fundamental for you all to understand. Because you have to have a mindset that you have been hired by a company as a CISO, and then you are going to set up security for them from scratch. So when you set up this entire governance structure as a leader, what kind of things you need to think about, what kind of thing you are going to work upon to make sure that your security program is effectively set up. And then this particular domain also talks about how you need to take effective guidance from different type of frameworks all of out there. And then it also talks about how do you utilize those frameworks to set up the governance within your company. And then it also talks about integrating security into the different business functions all out there. And finally, we go and churn a lot of concepts, understand the entire risk management, because risk management is very integrated thing into the security thing by itself. So there is an entire objective dedicated for risk management. On top of it, we will see some different type of risk management activities. For example, threat modeling, supply chain risk management. Those are always board talks all the time, right? And then finally, we are going to talk about some security awareness stuff as well, because that's a continuous activity which has to happen. So this is the overall, you can say, structure for the domain number 1. So I hope you have a good idea. Back to you, Pratima ma'am. But before this, let me tell you why so many people fail the CISSP exam. Because as you can see in the image here, right? When we prepare for CISSP, we always prepare in a normal routine. Everything is all set, and you just go through the concept. You don't practice some kind of difficult scenarios. But the real CISSP exam will always test you on those different concepts all the time. So that is what. And thank you, ma'am, for bringing this slide. Let's go through objective number 1.1. So over to you, ma'am. What questions you have?
So even I'm very curious to know about like CISSP Domain 1 is we have divided in various objectives. The first objective which comes in my mind is understanding and adhere to and promote professional ethics. So would you like to throw some light about what are all these concepts over here?
Yeah, sure, ma'am. Thank you for asking that question. Actually, you know what? This objective is the fundamental of the entire CISSP. It might be that you are a very skilled security professional, but if you are not having the proper professional ethics, it can hurt not only you, it can also hurt the organization and the you can say society by itself. And that is where ISC2 is doing a great job. They have spoken about 4 ISC2 code of ethics, and these ethics are fundamental to any security professional. And this particular thing also talks about the culture, because when ethics is kind of similar for different people in the company, that actually establishes a very good security culture, very good risk aware culture as well. So I think this topic, objective number 1.1, is the bedrock of the entire CISSP. Now, when it comes to the exam part, right, you may not have a very direct question asking you on the ethics. Definitely it can be, but most of the time you will not even realize that you have been tested on this particular objective. They will give you some kind of scenario which might look you as if it is from a different domain, but end of the day they are testing you onto your intent, on your ethics by itself. So those kind of questions will come. There are total 4 ISC2 code of ethics. The number 1 ethics is all about social good. You have to always work in the interest of the society, and that is always your highest priority. Then the second ethic is all talking about your professional ethics. You need to be honest to others, you need to be honorable to others, you have to be always legally correct and all those kind of stuff, right? So that is what the objective. In this objective, the ISC2 code of ethics number 2 is all governing your entire behavior as a professional. Then the ISC2 code of ethics number 3, it talks about how you need to provide your diligent services to your employers, right? And that's also kind of very, very important, because that shows your integrity towards the company you are working for. And the ISC2 code of ethics number 4 is all about, continuous learning and, giving back to the society and helping the entire security community to grow, so that people have more trust in the security community. So that is what is the overall, things which are covered in the objective number 1.1. Now, ma'am, I know you might also be thinking what kind of questions may come from this objective, right? So, when it comes to the questions, right, as I told you, they might give you some kind of scenario which might put you in some kind of ethical dilemma, or in case something is going bad and you have to report something, in what structure you are going to report to the legal authorities and all of it. You should not directly go and talk to the client and start talking to the society until unless you have gone through within your organization, followed the process of bringing up what's going wrong, and if the management is not responding well to you, then only you should go and disclose that to the authorities or maybe to the society. So that's the focus for this entire objective number 1.
That was fantastic, the way you explained about objective number 1. So now my next question to you, just out of curiosity, is to understand about objective number 1.2, which is understanding and applying the security concepts, not only in our professional as well as in our day-to-day life too. And obviously, the second question related is the same thing. What type of questions we will be getting from this particular objective?
Okay. Ah, okay, so objective number 1.2 is all about understanding some security fundamentals, because if a security professional is not able to understand the fundamentals itself, that means he's doing a big mistake. He's not talking about the pillars of security. So basically, we all talk about CIA, confidentiality, integrity, and availability, where confidentiality means that somebody, an unauthorized person, should not have access to the information. Integrity means that unauthorized person should not be able to modify the information, and the availability means that the information is always available when required, it is in the right format, and it is consumable at all times. So that's your CIA triad. Now, why this particular objective has so much of relevance? It might look as a very, very fundamental topic, but believe me, the entire security revolves around CIA. Okay, because security is not a function where you are just going to copy something from one organization and pasting it on the another side. That doesn't work that way. So in that case, what need to happen is you need to understand the confidentiality, integrity, and availability requirement of the company when you are doing the risk assessment of the company, and then based on that you need to pick up the respective controls from different frameworks, and you have to do the scoping as per your company requirement. Then you go back to the framework, pick up those kind of controls, and then tailor made them as per the company, so that your security program is fitting and meeting your specific requirement for the company. It's not something like you just go and take it ready made from the market. That's not what security is. Now, apart from those three concepts, confidentiality, integrity, and availability, the another two concept we talk about here is, one is authenticity, because that is the bedrock for the entire security. The information, the email, the messages you are going to get, are they authentic in the first place? Have you validated that they are coming from the right source, or they are reaching to the right destination? At the same time, if you validated that they are coming from the right source or they are going to the right destination, have you also ensured that the message has not been tampered with? So authenticity is equal to authentication plus integrity all the time, and that is also one thing which has been discussed in the objective number 1.2. Now finally, one final punch here. There are total 5 pillars. The fifth pillar is always known repudiation. And if we are not having known repudiation controls, always it will be a big problem for the security guy, because if somebody do something bad, they can very easily deny it. You should have controls which prevent something from denying these things. So that's on the concept part and what has been covered in this particular objective. Now, as per your second question, you asked me what kind of questions you may get in the exam from this particular section. So guys, it is very fundamental that you should understand which particular, you can say, fundamental concept, all these 5 pillars relates to which type of controls. If they are talking about encryption, you always have to think about encryption. If they are talking about integrity, you have to think about hashing. If they are talking about authentication, then how you are going to meet the authentication. It is asymmetric cryptography, or maybe in some cases, let's say Kerberos, we also go with symmetric token based authentication as well. So understanding those kind of things is very important for answering all the questions which relates to the objective number 1.2. So I think that's a summary for my side for the objective number 1.2.
Yeah, that was really amazing the way you explained it. Okay, before we proceed further, let me throw some light on the program which CyberNOS conducts about CISSP, which is CISSP Success Toolkit. We have a proven result where we have more than 650 plus success stories with us. And the program which we conduct is 100 days of CISSP preparation plan. Let me tell you, it is the holistic ecosystem which you will be getting over here. It is not a boot camp at all. It is your one-stop solution, which includes everything. Like, you don't have to worry about any material outside. We have everything. The entire ecosystem is built in such a way so that the busy professionals like you can follow the path and achieve your goal. So it is a hybrid approach where we have in 100 days you get more than 250 plus hours of training. Basically, the 60 plus hours of live exam practice sessions which are conducted, they have really played a role of a game changer. People have cracked CISSP by following these 60 hours of live exam practice sessions, or rather, I should call it the coaching by Manojji, and 30 plus hours of doubt clearing session also, which are conducted in this program itself. So you get rid of all the heavyweight books. You don't require any renowned book to follow. There is a smart book which is specifically prepared for you guys, and we have our own inbuilt exam engine. So it is simply a one stop solution. People who are really looking to crack CISSP. And the important thing is you even get one on one mentorship too. If you get stuck somewhere, you are demotivated. So we are here to support you guys. So reach us out. Maybe in some time the contact number will be reflecting on the screen. So, sir, moving ahead, I would like to ask you about the fifth, the third objective, which is, I think we have discussed, is evaluate and apply and sustain security governance principles. If not, would you like to throw some light on this specific objective too?
Yeah, thanks, ma'am. Thanks. And I think, yeah, you remember because you were talking about all these topics with me, right? So,
Yeah.
objective number 1.3 is again very, very important for any security professional to know. Why is it so important? Because let's say I give you a scenario, guys. Let's say you have been hired by a company as a virtual CISO, as a CISO, and you need to go and establish security from the scratch. Or even if you are just going to sustain their existing security program by itself, what is going to be your approach all the time? So this particular objective covers all the important stuff you need to take into consideration when you are setting up security for every company out there. This talks about due care, due diligence. That's a very important topic. What is due care, the legal expectation as a prudent company from your organization. And also due diligence means there has to be a lot of background effort which has to go all the time to make sure that security decisions are taken well. That's another topic. This particular objective also talks about, I would say, organizational process as well. These are the processes which happens on the organizational level. For example, your company is going for a merger, you are going for an acquisition, all these kind of stuff. At that point in time, when your company is going to do a merger or acquisition, there are definitely going to be a lot of integrations between the two, and in that time there will definitely be a lot of risk which can be introduced on your company, because the another company's security posture may not be right. So how are you going to handle the M&A kind of situations? And at that point in time there's a lot of risk, because people are always in panic of losing their jobs, and all the chances of information getting disclosed is also very, very high. So those kind of topics also being covered. This objective also talks about roles and responsibilities. It talks about the entire structure of security, and how security fits in into the entire scheme of thing. It talks about accountability, it talks about responsibility, the different role, what CISO is going to do, what CIO going to do, what CFO going to do, and what are the different security roles out there. It also talks about that as well, like auditors and security analysts and all these kind of people as well. So this gives you very, very strong foundation for the entire governance. Then this particular objective actually is huge. It also talks about the governance frameworks as well. And as a security professional, you should be knowing the different type of frameworks which are applicable, and how you are going to select the right framework for your company, so that it fits in well with your company. Sometimes these kind of frameworks you don't have a choice, because there is some legal implications on you, liabilities on you, or there's some expectation from you. You have to go and follow a certain framework. But in case, let's say, you don't have any such requirement, then you can go with some industry standard framework, let's say ISO 27001. And NIST is anyways always available for free for everyone. So you should be having a very strong hold of NIST cybersecurity framework, ISO at least, and PCI DSS framework. So because there are a lot of questions which are coming from those frameworks into this entire stuff. So that is what I would advise you all, to be very specific. You don't need to necessarily go too much into depth about these particular frameworks, not required. You should be knowing what is the entire purpose of a particular framework, which kind of industry it meets into, and the three framework which I told you: ISO 27001, NIST cybersecurity framework, and the PCI DSS. You should be a little bit deeper into those. Not necessarily that you need to go and learn and remember all these kind of frameworks. Just understand in a logical way, because most of the framework they talk about security practices, and oftentimes they are same kind of thing, right? So that is going to be your focus for this particular objective. And always make sure, when it comes to the questions from this particular objective, you need to always think that security must align with the business objectives. If security is not aligning with the business objectives, it is not providing value to its stakeholder, then you are not going to set up a good security at all. Also, please understand, security in a company always is a top down approach. It always comes from the top. So in that case, there might be some questions which might be focused on these things. And finally, one more type of questions which you should be very careful about. You know what? Exam may test you on your communication skills as well. As a security professional, you should be able to sell security to the leadership. How you are going to communicate, let's say, to a CFO about security, because these are people, these are like business guys. They don't understand the nitty-gritty and technical stuff about the security. So how you are going to talk to them? You have to mold your conversation in the business terms, and something which actually applies to them. Then only that's the only way to secure funding, and support for the entire security program. So that is going to be the entire, you can say, mind map of the objective number 1.3, and the kind of questions which might come in the exam from this particular objective. So I think that's it, madam, from objective number 1.3.
That was huge. And but I am sure with the way you explain it, it's going to be a cakewalk for the candidates who are really preparing for that. Now let me come to the objective number 1.4, which talks about understand the legal regularity and compliances issues that pertain to the information security in a very holistic context. So how you will be talking about this objective, as well as what importance it has in the exam. from the exam perspective? Would you like to throw some light on this, sir?
Actually, very, very important topic. Very, very important topic. And many times people get pissed off. I see a lot of students getting pissed off when they talk about this objective number 1.4, because this talks about a lot of legal angle, which is not our core expertise, right? So that
Yeah.
is always there. But as a security leader, that's what makes you different from others, right? As a security leader, you have to see the big picture of the business. Business is always worried about compliance, the regulatory requirement, the legal requirement, the compliance requirement, the things which are coming from the contracts and all of it. So it is very fundamental for you to understand that cyber security is just not a technical ask. It is also about following a lot of administrative controls, a lot of compliances and those kind of stuff. And those elements must be taken into consideration when you go and set up security for that. That's the only reason when you are asked to set up the security for a particular company, I think the first thing is to perform a risk assessment, understand your assets, their values, and based on those assets try to find out all the internal risk and the external risk, which already will include the legal requirement, regulatory requirement, and compliance requirements as well. And that is where the CISSP, because it is taken out from the NIST, it also talks about a lot of compliance requirements, the legal things as well. Now my advice to my student is, guys, you don't need to go too much into those laws, because that can simply make you overwhelmed. You don't need to go too much into this, but at least make a table kind of thing, right, which talks about a particular law and what is the purpose of the law, where does it apply, and what is the key consideration in that particular thing, what is the bottom line bedrock, you can say, concept from that particular law or maybe a compliance requirement. So I think those things, if you understand well, then this objective is going to be a cakewalk for you guys. Okay, so that's the thing. Most of the questions which may come from this particular objective might have drag and drop kind of questions, which might ask you to relate a particular law with a particular type of industry, or maybe a particular country, or maybe a specific you know uh, basic you can say purpose for that particular law. So those kind of questions you can expect from this, but understanding this is very, very fundamental, not only for your CISSP. As a security leader, you should understand that legal is a big thing when it comes to the cyber security. So that's my say on the objective number 1.4, ma'am.
The best insight I have ever heard about this. And now let me go to the next one. It talks about understand the requirements for investigation type. So what is it like? I'm not very much clear about this objective. So would you like to say something about this too?
Correct, ma'am. Actually, you know what, so many students, they go through this particular objective, but they don't understand why it is there in place. So let me talk about the why aspect first. You know what, in companies, when you are going to set up your security program, there are going to be violations at any point in time. Those violations can also be within your company. Let's say one particular employee harassing another employee, or a
Mhm.
particular employee copying your data and sending it to somebody else, right? Those kind of things are very, very common. Sometimes even your competitors might also lure your employees to get this particular thing done, right? And that takes us to some kind of security incident which will happen. Some kind of
Mhm.
security incident might be with a wrong intent, and they might also require for you to initiate some kind of investigations. Now when it comes to investigations, there are three different categories of the investigations. Number one, some investigation which is internal and might be it is ordered from your management itself. When management orders an investigation, it can be for troubleshooting some kind of internal HR issues and those kind of stuff as well, and this is initiated by the company. So the final decision on that is also taken by the company. However, there are some investigations you have to perform, and sometimes while doing the investigation, you will come to know that this is falling under the category of a crime. And when it comes to crime, there are two types of crime. One is civil crime and one is criminal crime. The difference is, when it comes to the civil crime, somebody performs a tort, that means a harm to another party. And in that case, the legal authority is not directly involved. The particular guy has to go and file a legal suit and those kind of stuff. So those kind of crimes normally falls into civil crimes. If the civil crime is there, then the security professionals are involved into the entire thing, maybe to investigate or to support the investigations sometimes. And you need to understand what is the burden of proof. So burden of proof is, I think, another topic we'll cover in domain number 7. But here the objective is more about understanding the different type of investigations which comes in. Sometimes these investigations come from the criminal perspective as well, where somebody is doing an activity which can be bad for the society, so the legal authority get automatically engaged into that entire stuff. That's very, very fundamental. And you need to, when you are setting up your security program, you need to also take care and expect that such kind of scenarios will also come. And those scenarios, how you are going to handle your security program, should be able to take care of the same. That is the entire, you can say, bedrock understanding of the objective number 1.5. Now, this particular objective, what kind of questions you may get in the exam, that's also very, very important. So you need to understand the differences between civil investigation, criminal investigation, who takes an action, in which one the crime is considered as more severe. There are some threat actors as well who might be into all these kind of things, involved into these kind of things, might be your competitor, maybe threat actors, other threat actors and all. So that's understanding and taking care of that. How you're going to take care of that into your security program is the fundamental thing, and based on this you might get some questions out there. So that is what I would say about the objective number 1.5.
That was great. And now we all know that security policies, standards, procedure, guidelines, they are very mandatory. So this objective number 1.6, it talks about the same, like how to develop, how to document and implement the security policy and standards. We would like to know about this objective too.
Okay, great, ma'am. And I think this is where first time when the theory get converted into something which is going to be happen on the ground. So whatever strategy you have created for your information security program, you have to implement it in some form, right? So the first form in which your governance is going to be applied across is all about what we talk about in the objective number 1.6. So you have to set up a framework for your company where you are going to develop the policies, the standards, and those kind of things which is applicable to your company. Believe me, the develop word itself tells you here it has not to be something which is copied and pasted. I have seen that in many companies, people just copy paste something from SANS website and they make a policy, control F and control R, right? They replace it and they feel like they have created the policy. No, you need to understand as a security guy how you are going to set up this entire program, some kind of dedicated effort where you are going to develop the policies and the standard which meets your specific business requirement and compliance requirement. Then you need to make sure that you are going to document those. If you are not having some kind of policies which are properly documented, properly published, some of the people are not knowing it, obviously there are going to be violations, right? So you need to make sure, in many companies I have seen, they have something called as quality management system, or they have some kind of ticketing system where they will host the policy to the people, because policies once created also need to be reviewed after some time, right? Not necessarily every day, but it has to be reviewed. Those things are also very, very important. And the third important aspect which this objective covers is the implementation. So your policies which you are going to create and the standards and all which you are going to create has to be implementable. Number one, it has to meet your specific requirement. Second thing, nothing get implemented in the company well if it is not enforced. You have to make sure that your policies and standards and all, it is enforceable. They should have some kind of clauses which talks and tells to the end user that you have to follow this particular policy. Otherwise, you might have to go through some kind of consequences. Obviously, it's not from a bad perspective, but enforcement is very, very important. Then this objective also talks about what is a policy. It's a high level documentation which actually derives the management intent to each and everyone in the company. There are different type of policies. Some policies are also driven from laws and all of it. And then to support your policies, you have another set of documentation which is called as standards, which are much more specific. And then to support all these things, because sometimes a process has been dealt with, like sometimes multiple teams are involved into that. For example, your vulnerability management, different teams are involved. Security team is scanning, then sending the report to different people, analyzing the report and sending. Then different application owners, system owners, asset owners, they need to go and fix it. And then management is also involved to drive those calls and all of that. How you are going to work in an environment where multiple teams, multiple people are involved? And more on that, there are sometimes when one employee is not available, one team is not available, how you are going to perform that task. So in that case, it is fundamental that you have security procedures as well, which is going to be a very detailed description about how to do something. And that is where the procedures comes into picture. Now, policies, standards, and procedures are mandatory, but on top of it, we need to fill in some kind of small cracks, which is not getting answered through your policy, standard, and procedures. That is your guidelines. And these guidelines are coming from the SMEs, from different departments. It might be coming in the form of an email with do's and don'ts. So intended behavior from you is what is coming through the guidelines. Now, these guidelines are not mandatory, but they are very, very important to be set up in the company. So as a security leader, while you are setting up your entire governance structure, you are giving it a structure, right? Setting up the roles and responsibilities, setting up the policy framework and all of it. Then you need to be careful and you need to plan it better so that your entire structure is governed. In a company, people come from different background, different ethics, different locations, and they have different understanding as well. How you are going to drive the entire security program without this entire framework? So that is why it is so fundamental. Objective number 1.6. The kind of question is, you should understand how this entire hierarchy works: policies, standard, procedures, and guidelines, and how these things are has to be maintained, how the policies and all this particular thing has to be developed, how it has to be documented and published to the required audience and all of it, and more about the implementation effectiveness. So you can get a lot of questions which says which of the approach is more effective or most effective in that particular case. So those kind of questions definitely you should be expecting from the objective number 1.6. Sorry for a long explanation. I will let you go further in that case.
No, actually, that is required because nobody talks about such things in such a depth the way you are explaining all this. Now, coming on to the next objective, which talks about business continuity requirements. There are various other aspects too. Would you like to speak up about that too, sir?
Yeah, definitely. But first, I would like to say one thing, guys. You know what? We start preparing for CISSP just because we need a certification. Guys, it is just not a way of getting a certification. CISSP is a complete transformation of you as a security professional. So you have to take it that way. Go and understand and connect these dots together. This is, end of the day, is making you a very strong security professional. So that's my advice to you. Now I am coming back on the objective number 1.7. Guys, this particular objective talks about business continuity requirement. So when you are setting up your entire security program, you have to also take care of business continuity as well. Now, if you're wondering what is business continuity, it's a process, it's a structured approach, how the company need to make sure that, let's say there is a big disaster which has come. In that situation, also, at least your critical business functions are up and running. So when some disaster happens, leadership thinks a little differently. Instead of just fixing the same thing, because fixing may not work. You have implemented preventive controls, you have implemented detective controls, then you got an incident, you try to resolve that incident, but that incident was not resolved within time, and then it now has become a disaster, big disaster. Let's say a ransomware attack. Now in a ransomware attack, how you are going to act, because it's a panic situation, right? You need to make sure that there is a process we have to follow, everybody is clear about that particular process. Obviously there will be a separate business continuity team which will be expert on that, but as a end user, as a security guy, you should also be knowing what security role is into the entire business continuity. So this particular objective talks about what is business continuity, how you are going to identify your critical assets, how you are going to analyze the impact which happens because of something not available, and then how you are going to prioritize the kind of controls you need to put up or redundancy you need to put up for certain you can say infrastructure, the processes and the people and all of it, even vendors also, right? And then you have to take care for all these kind of things into the initial governance structure which you are going to set up for your security. So that is the mindset for this objective number 1.7. So I hope that helps you. Now coming back a little bit on the kind of questions you will get from this objective, you should be very thorough about what is MTD, RTO, RPO. If you are not aware, don't worry, we have a lot of classes. I keep throwing a lot of free classes for you guys as well, and you can also join me on CISSP Success Toolkit, which where you are going to master all these kind of concepts. So don't worry, those kind of questions may come. And then uh, the basic difference between a business continuity, disaster recovery, the kind of sub processes which are there in business continuity, how you're going to test your business continuity plan and kind of thing, those kind of questions you should be expecting from this particular objective number 1.7. So I hope gives you a good insight. Let's go to the next objective.
Yeah, though now the next topic, I think it relates to same security policies and procedures, but I think the add-on is how to contribute to or enforce the personnel security policies and procedures. So
Fantastic, man. Fantastic,
yeah,
man. You know what? Many people think, and they think like security scope is only maintaining the IT assets. That's a very wrong mindset which many people have, unfortunately. But actually speaking, this objective number one talks about that security is not a vertical function. Security is a horizontal function. You need to make sure that security is integrated into different business processes all around so that those processes are executed securely in the first place. Second thing, the people part. Because whenever we talk about security, most of the people think it is all about technology, bringing new tools, bringing new firewalls, this and that. No, guys, that's not what the intent for CISSP is. The CISSP thing is people, process, and technology. So you can see the PPT, the T comes at the last. So that is what your mindset should be. Technology comes at the last, but before that we have people and we have processes. So lot many questions will come from people related controls. There will be a lot of questions which will be coming from the process related controls, and very less question comparatively may come from the technical direct technical concepts. So that is what we need to understand. So the first thing is the people. Now when people control has to be there, it is start from a employee life cycle. A manager feels that they need to have a particular resource for performing some task. They decide on the skill set, they decide on the role, and then they throw out a JD. That JD goes to the HR department. HR going to shortlist the candidates. Then they come with the interview. Then they get selected, they get onboarded, and then they are hired into the company. Now how you are going to integrate security into the entire process, right? That's very important. So security has to be integrated in each and every function, and from the very start of the entire hiring process, and it has to go throughout the life cycle of the employee. That is what is the entire focus for this. And a very fundamental concept which people must know, they will be testing you in the CISSP exam, is about acceptable use policy. and the kind of documentation which you need to have the employee signed at the time of getting hired. Those things play a very important part. Now it might be for employee, it might also be for contractors, it might be also for professional services, all of it. You need to go with a very well structured security consideration when it comes to the documentation related to the people. And that is what is the focus for this entire objective. Now in this entire objective, you might get some questions on AUP, acceptable use policy. There might be some questions which might talk about how you need to resolve a cultural problem as well, security awareness that we are going to talk later. And those kind of questions, right? How you are going, what kind of documentation you should sign, what kind of, how you need to give the access to the vendors and these kind of people as well. So those are the kind of questions you may get from this particular objective. So I hope that gives you good insight.
Yes, yes, definitely, definitely. Then moving on to the next objective, it talks about understand and apply the risk management concept. So how we are going to understand this objective?
Okay.
Please throw some light on this too.
Yeah. I would say, guys, this is the most important and the core of the entire CISSP domain number one. One is objective number 1.3 that talks about the governance, 1.4, 1.5, and then this objective 1.9. So this particular objective is huge, and this is really, really amazing. If you are into cybersecurity, you need to understand first that risk management is fundamental to security. Because there is a risk, that is why we have information security. In the first place, if there is no risk, there is no information security required in the first place, right? So how you're going to make sure that you have a consistent process of risk management, which will identify the risk, which will measure the risk, which will analyze the risk, which will prioritize the risk, which will report the risk, which will talk about taking some steps on the risk, and then how you are going to monitor the entire risk throughout its life cycle. Now, risk cannot be mitigated to 0%, like 100%, sorry. That means you cannot completely mitigate risk. There will always be some amount of risk which will be remaining. We call it as residual risk. That particular risk is what is a decision making point for the entire security decisions all the time. And that is where you have to always understand what is acceptable level of risk for the business, what is risk tolerance, and then how you are going to act, how you are going to identify these risks, what kind of process you follow. You have some surveys, you have some questions, you have some interviews with the people to identify the risk. Then it is very important how you analyze the risk as well. You need to analyze the risk, and there might be different approach taken by different companies. There is something called as qualitative risk assessment, very lightweight, anybody can do with a little bit good understanding about risk. And there is quantitative risk analysis, which require a lot of maturity by the company, and it is very, very quantitative in approach. But believe me, there is also one more concept which says you cannot purely quantify it. That means there is no perfect quantitative risk assessment, because there are some subjective areas in risk. That means, let's say, talk about reputation, talks about the client trust, talk about your brand value. These are the particular things which you have to take care of when you are calculating the risk. So how can you calculate and put it into a dollar value? It's very difficult to do that, right? So sometimes we mix up quantitative with qualitative, and then we call it as semi-quantitative risk assessment. That assessment is also very, very important. So this analysis will help you to come out with some figures where you can sort out the risk, and then you can report to the management, maybe through a risk heat map and these kind of stuff. And then management has 4 ways to respond to that particular risk: either accept the risk, transfer the risk, avoid the risk, and then finally, if nothing works, then you need to mitigate the risk. Then when you are going to mitigate the risk, what you are going to bring in? You are going to bring in a control. What is a control? A control is something which helps you to lower the risk. Now we all know risk is equal to impact into likelihood. So either you have to bring down the impact, or you have to bring down the likelihood. If you are trying to bring down the impact, that means you need some preventive controls. We call it as safeguards. If you are going to minimize the impact, that means something has already happened. I don't want further loss. You need to have some control for that. And for that, the kind of control we put it is called as countermeasures. So you need to put up safeguards and countermeasures as controls. And when we select these kind of controls, they should have control objectives. And you have to do some kind of analysis before you go and select a particular control. For example, it has to be psychologically accepted by people. I can come to the company and I can put forward a password which is 20 characters as a CISO. But will it be psychologically acceptable by everyone? No,
No.
right? Another funny example, right? Let's say you are going to implement access control, biometric access control. And from tomorrow, I signed a fatwa, kind of, management direct this thing, that tomorrow, from tomorrow onwards, we are going to take a DNA test for doing the biometric. Will people come to the company? No, right?
Never.
So it has to be psychologically acceptable. Then on top of it, there has to be a business angle to this. That is where we need to identify the cost versus benefit analysis as well whenever we go and implement a control. So you have to take care of few factors when you select a particular control. And if a control implementation is approved through the management action plan, then as a GRC team, you need to follow how the control is being done. You might have to perform risk assessment again. You have to continuously follow that particular thing. And then once you do it, you have to monitor the control at all times. And there are different ways in which we monitor risk, maybe through risk assessment, through threat and vulnerability assessment, and those kind of stuff. So there's a lot going into entire seeing it. Finally, at some point in time, you need to also have a information security continuous monitoring program. That's very fundamental because that will tell you about the risk. And also you need to test your controls which are implemented, because you have implemented a control. Is it going to be same effective after, let's say, 1 year? May not be, because the control may deteriorate over a period of time. Correct? Might be a configuration problem, might be a new threat which has come, and your control has suddenly become less effective. So you need to do continuous control testing as well. And when you do the testing, the output has to be from all this monitoring and testing and all these kind of things. There has to be some metrics which has to go to the management, so that you can take guidance from them. They are doing the oversight of it. The information security steering committee is kind of monitoring it. So those kind of things you need to take into consideration. And finally, one more important concept here is PDCA cycle, a continuous improvement cycle. You are investing on your security program from year to year. It has to mature over a period of time. And to mature, we follow something called as PDCA: plan, do, check, and act. So that is also one fundamental concept when it comes to the objective 1.9. Now, there is a lot of questions I know which might come from this. You should have a clear understanding of different risk elements. What is a threat? What is a vulnerability? Um, what is threat actor, what is threat vector, and then how the entire cycle works. The threat actually exploit a vulnerability, will cause you the risk, and all these kind of stuff. You bring in preventive controls, you bring in detective control. The best control you are going to put up is through defense in depth, and that should be a combination of first protective controls. And this is where I want to put a small ticker for all my students, right? You know what, when a question give you a keyword, let's say mitigate or prevent, that means it has to be a preventive control first. So many students, they get excited by so much of technical jargons there in the options, and they go for it. That is where they do the most of the mistake. First will always be the preventive controls, then detective controls, recovery controls. You have to follow NIST, guys. That's the whole perspective here. So guys, those kind of questions will come. And then there might be one question at least which might come on quantitative risk assessment. You should be very clear about the formulas and all of it. And then cost benefit is also one major topic which has been there all the time. And I think those are the kind of topics, right? Otherwise I can talk a lot about this objective actually. So giving back you the handle, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you for explaining the concept. Now, the next objective which comes over here is to understand and apply the threat modeling concepts and what are the methodologies which we should follow. And
Okay.
same, what type of question may come related to this objective.
Okay. Okay, so threat modeling is nothing very different activity. It is nothing but one form of risk assessment itself, but where it is getting plugged in. It is mostly getting plugged in when you are going to bring up some new software or hardware at that point in time to make sure that proactively you are going to identify the risk. That is where we follow the threat modeling method. And there are certain methodology to follow this. Let's say stride, pasta, dread, those kind of processes out there. That is where we execute all of it. So this is nothing but one form of risk assessment by itself. We talk about this a lot into my live classes and all of it. There's a lot we can speak about this, but from the interest of time, we need to understand this. We need to stop, be limited here. Now, threat modeling, the kind of questions which you might get from this objective is, what is actually threat modeling? At what stage of a system or software development are you going to invoke the threat modeling? What are the different methodology of threat modeling? Which one is more suitable in what conditions? Those kind of small things you need to understand. You don't need to be a master on these particular threat methodologies, but at least you should understand what happens in what. So that's objective number 1.10.
Fantastic. Now let's talk about the another objective, which is objective number 1.11, like apply supply chain risk management concepts.
Okay. And again, this is another form of risk management itself, I would say, and very, very fundamental and very important for everybody to understand, because in today's world, the attacker doesn't directly attack you. They actually first will compromise your supply chain and then will get into your environment. So understanding what is the entire supply chain risk management, that is what you have to understand. So every company nowadays is dependent on so many other companies, right? You cannot be independent in today's ecosystem. You might be taking a software from a third party, let's say Office 365 or some other program. If they have risk, that is also getting introduced into you. You are using a lot of softwares which might be developed or might be managed by a different company, and then risk comes to you. You are purchasing hardware that might have some kind of forfeit controls, that might have some kind of tampering also happening. There is also a concept of silicon root of trust, so that a hardware is designed in such a way so that any tampering effort is kind of detected and you are going to mitigate it. And then when you are purchasing software, there's a concept called as SBOM, software bill of software bill of software software bill. That means when you are going to hire a software from somebody, also talks about, ask them about the inventory of what libraries and other things you have been using into that. So that is what it is. You starting from a RFP process to the time you are going to terminate a particular vendor, you have to follow some kind of due diligence, how the entire risk assessment is performed, how the risk is calculated based on your security controls or standards and all of it. We talk about SCRM a lot. So this is a vast topic. And guys, I would say, if you need to master all of this, come to my sessions. That is where you are going to master all of it. It is going to help you and transform you forever, because as a security professional, you should be knowing all these fundamental concepts. That is what CISSP is actually a very basic certification, but your transformation is a big thing. Practically being a transformator is a big thing. So anyways, back to you, ma'am. The kind of questions you may get is all about supply chain risk management. In the interest of time, I'm little cutting short here, so ma'am, over to you.
Yeah, but that was, you are really connecting these dots with so much of clarity. So, okay, now last but not the least, we can say that we will talk about here objective number 1.12, which is about establish and maintain a security awareness, education, and training programs. What would you like to say about this one?
Uh, I would start saying with again the same thing, ma'am. Security is not about technology. It is all about people, process, and technology. And the people thing which comes first, right? So people is the weakest chain in the entire security, and that is why this objective is so much important. Now, when people are doing wrong and they are not
Hmm.
aware with the risk, they are not aware with the information security practices, obviously that company will have more risk, more incident coming from people doing it by intentionally or unintentionally. Now, how you're going to improve this entire status, that means it's a cultural problem. So whenever any question which is focused on the cultural issues, that means the main answer is always security awareness. Oftentimes in the exam you might get some kind of dilemma, because they might give you some technical controls and some kind of people controls as well, and so many people get confused into those kind of questions. So I would say, first thing, identify the question well. Most of the people, they fail CISSP exam because it is not because they are not knowledgeable. They are knowledgeable, they have a lot of experience, but the only thing is they don't understand the question well. So understanding question is the first important thing. Identify if this is a technical problem or this is a cultural problem. If in a question you find that something is a cultural problem, then the best control is always security awareness. However, security awareness is not a straightforward thing to put. It is a control, but it is little reactive control. Even after implementing it, you might have some incident which keep on coming. So before you go and implement information security awareness program, you need to also first set up the technical controls out there. Are they present or not present? So you have to carefully read the question. What is the intent of the question? Are they asking about the technical control, or are they asking about the cultural problem? If the root is the cultural problem, then security awareness is your best answer. So this information security risk awareness is a company wide process. That is where we make people understand the risk which is there, and how they need to, what is actually expected from them to follow their policies, right? Because policies, when we created, we already spoken about how you are going to take care of legal things, compliance things, any business requirement, all these kind of stuff, right? So that is where your information security program will come into picture. So those kind of questions, guys, you might get in the exam where there is a cultural problem.
Thank you so much for such a great insight which you have shared with the audience with me. Now, what piece of advice would you like to give about domain one?
Okay, guys. So I think this is time for us to make sure that you have the right perspective of this particular domain. That this domain is fundamental. Number one, you might be a guy who is highly expert into SIM. You might be a guy who is coming from the IAM background or all these kind of stuff. But please understand this particular domain. And actually, the truth, so many people feel this particular domain is very, very boring. Guys, this is the most exciting domain you can ever have, right? So take it with a lot of interest. Go through this recordings. I think this will be available, madam will make it available to you. You need to connect the dots and understand why these objectives are there in the first place, because these are going to shape your mindset. Let's say you have been hired in a company as a CISO, how you are going to perform, what activities you need to do in the sequence. So understanding the bigger picture is what provided into domain number one. Focus on the main concept which I told you in the exam. Obviously same concept will come in the exam, but they may test you through a twisted language. That understanding that twisted language, that English is little bit more important. So practice a lot of questions as well. And I do practice live when it comes to live exam practice. If you join the CISSP success toolkit, you are going to practice with me all these kind of live questions about this. That will give you a very good insight on what kind of questions may come, how do you comprehend the question. There is a framework to follow when you are answering a CISSP question. And that framework is what I teach in my classes to my student. It is 60 plus hours of live exam practice with me. Uh, Answering the right answer is going to be your second behavior. That is what I do for you, and that is why we have a lot of success stories. So I think, guys, take this domain as a transformation journey, not just because you are doing it without understanding the concepts, without understanding the why part of it, and you are just trying to go and hit the exam. It will not work. Memorization will not work. You need to understand this logically as a story.
That was really a great session with you over here today. And once again, let me tell people that we have a very good CISSP success toolkit. It's 100 days of CISSP preparation plan with proven 650 plus success stories with us. And it's a hybrid approach where you will be getting in 100 days more than 250 plus hours of training, or rather, let me call it a coaching, which will set your path towards achieving your goal. And I would like to mention one thing. If you want we should cover some particular topic, your comments are more welcome. Please comment below. We are here and we'll be coming live. We are trying to coming live every week, discussing about other domains too, like just not about CISSP. There are various domains, so we'll be putting some light in depth in our live sessions. We'll try to talk about with some specifications. So if you have any of the topics in your mind you want us to cover, do comment, and we are more than happy to answer all your queries over here. And one more thing, we are coming up with our next batch from 17th of January 2026, which is batch number 51. We have already covered the milestone of, we have completed our batch 50. So half century is there. So be a part of this journey and accomplish your dreams. The contact details are shown on the screen. And thank you so much for joining. And what is coming up next is on the screen. On 10th of January, we'll be discussing about domain 2 and what has to be the mindset, how you should be preparing for all this stuff for domain 2. And thank you, Manoj sir, for taking out some time and throwing some light on these important topics. And thank you. Thank you so much. We'll be meeting
Thank you, ma'am.
next.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. Bye.
Most welcome. Most welcome. Yeah, bye. We'll be meeting on 10. So stay tuned and keep healthy and have a nice day. Bye. Take care.